So it's been 1 year since I quit my job. A lot has happened this year, and I shipped around 10 or 11 different things in the last year. Through that, I just wanted to share some things that I've learned, and I think we're in this period of time where a lot of people that I know in my personal life are jumping ship. They're quitting their job on a whim to build SaaS, to build products online, to take advantage of this AI revolution that's kind of been happening for the last few years. Directories are amazing, but it's just one way to go about crafting a game plan, crafting a way to get out of the situation that you're currently in. As cool as directories are, it's really what directories enable us to do that make them so interesting. And I've gotten a lot of people who talk about how they don't like their job and they want to leave their job eventually. And that's a very classic thing. So I guess I'm just going to have more of a raw and honest talk around how to actually do that in a smart way. At this point, I think I've probably spoken to a few dozen people who have either successfully turned their side hustle into their full-time business, but I've met plenty of people who have made the leap without any planning and without any sort of game plan before they make a massive decision like this. So yeah, I guess I want to share my observations and what's worked for me and a viable roadmap to how you can probably do the same for yourself. Really, the first time I considered quitting my job was literally the first week that I got my job. I guess I started planning also because I tend to underestimate the timeline for things to actually unfold and take place. And one thing that I realized was that I first needed to know that it was possible and to build the confidence to actually take the leap. So even though I ended up quitting after about 1 year and 3 months into that job, my goal for the first year working my corporate job was really just to have a very clear idea of the game plan that would allow me to quit my job. And of course, I ended up choosing directories as my vehicle, but I told myself that if after 1 year, I could at least know very, very confidently how I was going to go and quit my job eventually and what I was going to build, that would be an amazing achievement already. Year 1 was really just getting the blueprint. And if I could have confidence in my blueprint, then I could start to build that, and in the next year, I could actually make the leap. Now, it ended up happening a little earlier, which is awesome, but that was kind of the expectation, right? And as expected, something that I knew would happen was just feeling zapped at the end of the day. I don't think that full-time jobs are bad at all, but I will say just the way that I felt at the end of the day when I would finish and come home at 7 p.m. And because I was too tired to do anything else and I couldn't work on things or even just explore hobbies that I wanted to do, that is the part that made me really not like having a corporate job. That was the pain that forced me to explore elsewhere and eventually continue building out directories and go into SEO consulting and all that kind of stuff. So I think a lot of people want to quit their job because, of this pain that I'm referencing, but I am not sure people actually want to accept the amount of work and the temporary sacrifice of having to take a few steps back financially and probably mentally in order to get to a point in 1 year or 2 to actually feel more free and have more control of your time and all those other benefits that people talk about. So for me, the first step was, let me just make sure after a few months of working my job that I actually still want to quit, that I actually still want to pursue entrepreneurship and build something and have control of my time. And I knew the answer was obvious for me because I kind of always been someone to die on the sword of building my own stuff. I'd much rather leave this world knowing that I try to do that rather than choosing an easier path, which I guess is just, working a job, but that's just my personal preference. But I guess my point is if I were to make this kind of a list of actionable steps, the first one was just knowing deep down in my spirit that I wanted to actually work for myself. And I don't think that's that obvious to people. I think people kind of bounce back and forth, and there's a lot of, maybe there's fear and there's life circumstances that get in the way. So just deciding on that and knowing that you're signing up for more work temporarily and a lot more compromise and sacrifice is kind of the first step. So after that, I needed to create a game plan. I needed to actually find a very realistic way to set myself up, position myself so that when I do quit my job, it's not this chaos and I'm not mentally strained every day. I'm not always super stressed about the situation that I'm in, and I have enough time mentally and financially to pursue what I want. And so I went on this quest to talk to as many people as I possibly can that have successfully turned their side hustle into a full-time job. So one thing that I did was I started this website called honesthustles.com. I took it down, so it's not on the internet anymore. And the goal with the website was really just to meet people who have done what I want, which is to turn a side hustle into a full-time job. But I wanted to understand so much more. I wanted to know how much money they had, what their run rate was, how much money they were making from their side hustle before quitting. I wanted to know their mindset before quitting. So if they had this plan or if they were just kind of taking the leap blindly and just hoping that it worked. I wanted to know so much. And so the only way to really get these people to talk to me was to create this website, this kind of business. And I positioned the website so that people can come and share their stories where they've turned a side hustle into a full business. And they basically tell me all the details of where they were at in that exact time of their life. It was a business, but the website wasn't designed to make money. It was really selfishly for me to gain the confidence and understand how many paths there were to actually successfully quitting your job and turning something into a full-time business. And it worked because every single day before work, I would wake up a couple hours earlier before my job started, and I would go to a Starbucks, message 300 people, just cold message on Facebook. I would basically say, hey, I have this website. I'm looking to interview people who have turned a side hustle into a full-time business. We have a few hundred readers a month, so you're going to get visibility on your business. And also I'll pay you $50 for you to just talk to me for 30 minutes or an hour. And surprisingly, that worked pretty well. I ended up talking to a few dozen people from all around the world who currently are full-time business owners, but never started that way. They were building on the side or building while they were working and then somehow turn that into their full-time thing. I would spend an hour talking to these people, asking all of these details, prefacing that, hey, look, for you to be on this website, you need to tell me everything. You need to tell me how much money your side hustle was making, how much you were saving, and what was your run rate. I basically had an hour to ask them any psychological and financial question that would help me craft the game plan that was right for my life circumstances. And I met a ton of people. I met people who quit their job with zero plan and just somehow made it work. Actually, surprisingly, there were a few of those people. I met people who had pretty much 3 months of savings, who had kids, and they ended up rising to the occasion and making it work. I met people who had 5 years of savings, traveled the world, didn't really place a massive urgency on developing their business, and then kind of ran out of money. So they were kind of stumbling around like year 4 or 5. I met a lot of people. And that's really what allowed me to not only build my confidence when crafting my own game plan and my exit strategy for corporate, but also understand what the right ways to do things were and the wrong ways to do things were, because there's never going to be a one-size-fits-all plan when it comes to quitting your job. We both have different financial requirements. We may have different lifestyles. Some of us have kids, some of us don't. And a lot of different life circumstances make this kind of a challenging thing, so it's never going to be perfect, right? But from that, I was able to combine what I learned from dozens of people who actually did the thing that I want, and also advice that I found online from people like Justin Welsh and Naval Ravikant. And I was able to combine those to come up with a plan that worked for me. And speaking of Justin Welsh, I don't remember the exact tweet, but I remember Justin Welsh saying something along the lines of, once your side hustle is earning enough where it doesn't make financial sense to stay in your current job, that's when you should take the leap and then quit. But for me, it wasn't that case at all. Based on all the people that I've spoken to, I ended up deciding that my personal game plan was that my side hustle had to bring in 20-25% of my full-time income. I needed a 2-year run rate because I know I personally tend to underestimate how much time it takes for things to develop. And I knew that a year would fly by. And this is proof. I mean, I can't believe a year has passed already. So I had to figure out my monthly burn rate, and I had to make sure that I had that in savings or just, somewhere readily available. And the last thing I decided I needed was a way to actually make money more immediately. And so that ended up becoming SEO consulting, just because with my directory, it was making decent money. Like my first directory, it was still cash flowing and paying me like nearly a couple $1,000s a month, but it also fluctuated, as directories do if you're monetizing through display ads. So I needed a more aggressive way where I could choose to go out and make money faster. Yeah, so those were kind of the few things that I decided that I needed. So that was really step 2, was crafting that game plan and allowing yourself to create a viable one rather than one that isn't backed up with evidence or examples from real life people. And one of the great things was that as I got to meet a lot of these business owners, whenever I would mention SEO, I saw their entire face light up, or just they would get more engaged. And that's when I knew that I was onto something, which is why I think directories is another really good play. If you just have one directory website that's pretty successful, it kind of speaks for itself. The thing with SEO is that there's so many people who claim they know SEO, but they don't actually have projects to prove it. So it's kind of this trust me bro situation, right? In a way, it's actually a good thing that there's a lot of people who are snakes in the grass in the SEO world, because if you have something to show for it and you do act with integrity and you're just an honest person, then that actually works in your favor, and it gives you this viable path to have people trust you, to purchase your time for your expertise because they know that you have an existing project that has a lot of organic traffic already. And that's what I noticed. People would eventually just ask for consulting, and I did it for free for a long time for a lot of different business owners. And then eventually it got to a point where someone literally at the end of our Zoom call was like, awesome, how do we work together? And I was like, oh no, sorry, I'm kind of building these directories. I don't have time to do consulting. And he was like, no, I don't think you understand. I'm not taking no for an answer. Like, how much do you want me to pay you? And I was like, okay, I guess. And I just came up with a number, threw it out, and he said yes. And that's kind of how my first SEO client became a thing. And so now I had the retainer from clients that I was getting, and then I had my directory income. And as long as I had the savings component, I was pretty much ready to take the leap. After about a year and 3 months into my job, I ended up quitting the job. I think maybe I was a little bit under my exact game plan. Maybe I didn't have exactly a 2-year run rate. I had a little bit less, but the other parts were taken care of. At that point, had the confidence, had the game plan, had generally the right expectations when I quit my job to know that I would be able to work for a year and a half or 2 years without making anything. And I would the worst case scenario is I just go get another job, right? So looking back at the year, I actually shipped a lot of things. And that was really the whole goal with the first year out of my job, was ship as many things as possible. I shipped like 10 things or so, maybe 10 or 11 things in the last year. 6 of them were directories. And then this YouTube channel was one, the newsletter, the Circle community, and then I co-built a SaaS. But this kind of goes into the next thing that I learned, which was you just never know what opportunities are going to arise after you take the first step or the third step or the 7th step. I talk about this openly, but I never planned on making a YouTube or a personal brand in 2025, but I felt so confident that I could speak on directories after making so many and testing out different ways to make them and learning SEO and getting both great results and bad results. I just felt compelled to make a video, and that's what led to this YouTube. And if it weren't for me making those 6 directories, I wouldn't have felt that confidence to make a YouTube video, and that wouldn't have led to the newsletter or the community or meeting Min, who I ended up building the SaaS product with. So I guess what I'm saying is, in the very beginning, it seems very, very difficult to get started because sometimes the juice doesn't seem like it's worth the squeeze, or there's just a feeling of being unsure if directories is the thing. But it's all the unseen things that you can't foresee that happens when you start things. And the only reason I was able to ship, almost half the things on this list was because the directories was the first part. And then that gave me confidence to speak on SEO and directories, make videos, and people started asking for things, and I just started to build them. And so that's kind of how things started to roll. But I'm constantly shocked still. It doesn't even have to be YouTube too. If you have successful directories that you own, people are just going to want to talk to you because you will be known as the SEO person, or you'll have knowledge and skills that people want to know and they want to pay for your time. So the ball just kind of continues to roll. Like the snowball continues to get bigger and bigger as you just start things. I think on the internet, it's really easy to just look at what successful people are telling you, and they're just like, oh, just build as many things as possible. Just keep on building, keep on building. But I think the actual message is keep on building, because maybe the thing that you build isn't going to be successful, but it's the doors that open up after you build something, whether it's successful or not, that lets you meet people who will further get to your success, that will give you the skill, that will give you the failure that enables you to not make the same mistake and then build something even better. Like there's so many things that could happen when you start building something. And that example has played over and over in my life. One thing that I didn't mention was when I was cold messaging people before work for 2 hours a day, I ended up messaging this Asian matchmaker who's very successful. She charges tens of thousands of dollars per client. And she invited me to this entrepreneurs WhatsApp group that I'm still pretty active in. And that also led to other introductions in SEO and just kind of building my reputation as an SEO known in small circles, right? So if I were to create a checklist for anyone who's watching that I think is actually very viable, is one, actually decide if you want to quit your job and if you're ready for the loss aversion that will take place. And some of the mental and financial compromises and sacrifices that you'll have to make to get the confidence by talking to people who are in the shoes that you want to be in. And you can do that pretty easily, right? Like I just cold messaged people. I had no reputation, I had no business. I just used this Honest Hustle's website as a disguise to get to these people because people are more willing to talk to people with podcasts and websites and do interviews, and prove to yourself that people who have taken the leap aren't any smarter than you. Number 3 is actually crafting a game plan that's personalized to your actual life situation, where you have the mental capacity and the financial ability to go and build your business without feeling stressed. I think that's really important. And in this game plan, it's really important that you kind of have your passive earners, in this case, directories, if you're doing it for passive income. And then you have your more immediate earners, which is, for me, SEO consulting. And in your game plan, you also want to know your run rate and how much money you want to be bringing in before taking that leap. And the last one is just to honestly continue getting better at SEO and website development and building out these directories if you're choosing directories as your moat and doing the work, right? So that's pretty straightforward. Those are kind of like 4 steps that I would take personally if I were to do it all over again. So yeah, that's kind of my unsolicited advice and my personal story on how I did it. I hopefully don't need to go back to a full-time job, but you know what? If that happens, that's okay too, because I'm just gonna be crafting the same game plan and I'm just gonna position myself to do exactly what I did in the last couple years to take another attempt at building a business. If everything is lost tomorrow, I at least have a general game plan on how I'm going to get back to this same spot. And maybe that's step 5, which is being okay with things not working out exactly the way you think it will. But yeah, so that's kind of what I'd recommend, and hopefully this is valuable to at least one person out there. So with that, I appreciate you watching, and feel free to join the Ship Your Directory free community. There's tons of people in that community that are building things for this exact reason, right? So feel free to join that. I'll leave a link in the description. With that, I'll catch you guys in another video, and I hope you guys have a wonderful week. See ya.